think there's something like 13,000 or 14,000 on average dryer vent fires every year in the United States.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. That a friend of mine here in Knoxville actually had that happen.
All right, guys, here we are with another episode of The Den, brought to you by the Knox Real Estate Group. I'm Eric Weidner, broker-owner of the Knox Real Estate Group. And today I'm joined by a good friend and what I would say a great business partner, because we've had a really long working relationship, Zach Takle with AdvantaClean. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and even better, I'm considered a friend, so that's awesome.
Buddy, you and I, we go back a ways now. I was actually thinking about that this morning. We are in a networking group together, a BNI group. I've been in that BNI group now 7.5 years. I was told that yesterday.
Okay.
You and I met before I ever became a member of that. So, because when we were doing real estate, Teri, Joe's brother, connected us with you because we needed stuff. So I've known you probably 8 or 9 years.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe even longer. So yeah, we go back a long way. So just to kick things, what is AdvantaClean? What is your business? What do you do?
Yeah, AdvantaClean, we do mold remediation, water damage cleanup, air duct cleaning. So really all of our services are based around indoor air quality in a home. So our goals are to create an environment in the home, if there's a problem, to rectify that and make sure that the indoor air quality, the breathing of the homeowners, property owners, tenants in a business situation have good air to breathe. Okay.
So AdvantaClean, you own your business, but correct me if I'm wrong, AdvantaClean is a franchise, correct?
AdvantaClean is a franchise, yes. I own a local franchise here in Knoxville. We've been around since 2011, so 12.5 years, and it is a franchise, and the franchise started franchising in, I think, around 2006 or so.
Awesome. So I will say, and because I have a comment about this later, but because you're part of a franchise, I assume you get industry knowledge from the franchise company, and training. Like there's a lot of that stuff that kind of goes with it, correct?
It is, and that's probably the biggest advantage of it, in my opinion. As a business owner, as you know, it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day stuff of just running the business, keeping things moving forward, and it's hard to keep up with all the things that are going on in the industry or all the other opportunities that are out there to learn something new. Education, training, and things like that. And that's probably the biggest thing that we get from our franchises, those opportunities and reminders of, hey, we've got this opportunity. Here's something that you guys might want to add to your business, things like that. So.
Awesome. So let's talk briefly about just some of the subs, like the different categories of things that you do. I don't know, start with probably maybe the smaller stuff, because I have a feeling we're going to talk a little bit more about the big scary stuff. But so I know you do, for instance, like HVAC duct cleaning.
Right.
So what does that look like? Why should somebody even do that?
Air duct cleaning is something that's hard to determine when you need it. I think it's one of those things that's hidden behind the walls and things like that. But a big time of when we recommend you do it is when you're moving into a new home. You don't know the habits of the people that lived there before. I mean, they might have had 3 dogs and 2 cats and kids that are putting crayons down in the floor vents when mom's not looking, things like that. There's all kinds of things that could be in there. As a new homeowner, you might be super sensitive to pet dander, things like that. So just taking a register off and looking down in the few inches that you can see doesn't really tell you the whole story. So that's a big one, is just, maintenance, or, just a spruce up, I would say, on a home if you're not familiar with the history of it.
So do you see like, Okay, so what comes to my mind is like new construction or like really old homes.
Hmm.
Like, are those two categories that you would maybe see the most impact by what you do, or tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, new construction and after a remodel, depending on the precautions that were taken during the remodel, as far as if they blocked off the registers, blocked off the return. If they're doing a remodel in January when it's 20 degrees out, likely they're not turning off the heat, so you're circulating air at that point. So if you're not setting up containments and things like that to block dust, setting up dust barriers, you're going to have some issues. So those are big impact. Yes, we get a lot of stuff out of those vents. Older homes as well, but that kind of depends on if they've had that service done before too. I mean, it's not necessarily all older homes.
Now, now I have a Facebook group, um, Everything Fair Facebook group that I am the admin of, and every time I bring in probably about 20 people, like I'll start approving 20 people within minutes. There is somebody posting about air duct cleaning. Um, Clearly, there are a lot of people who hit on this and are somehow looking to take advantage of people and it always fits the same format.
Right.
It's like, hey, my family's doing this business, and there's always these pictures of like all this stuff coming out of like it's this big pile of gray nastiness coming out of an air vent, and then the next big giveaway is they normally comment on their post like 2 or 3 times, which the minute I see it, I automatically I delete it and I ban them from the group. But do you see yourself are you competing with like that? Like people see that or fall for that trap, and then maybe they think it's a scam. But
yeah, the industry's got kind of a bad reputation from stuff like that. That is a scam, and that's essentially what that is, as far as I know, is it's somebody out there just trying to get a lead and sell it to a company. Like, we don't buy leads, but a company that does our kind of work that actually buys leads. So there's somebody out there somewhere in the internet webs of things that are just trying to get somebody to comment and give them some information, and then they're going to turn and sell that to a company. So, but with that being said, yes, I'm a part of a bunch of those groups as well, and I see it all the time. And unfortunately, it adds a huge amount of skepticism to the legitimate companies.
I mean, which makes sense. Like and it's a shame that they do that. And I didn't realize maybe that they were doing it as a lead gen. I've seen another one that's become popular, and that's car detailing. Mm-hmm. So I'm seeing a lot of these car detail posts that are very similar in format to the air duct cleaning.
Yep.
And I think that's why it's important to note, like, you're a real company.
Right.
You're locally owned, but you're a franchise, and that is a service you offer professionally. Can you give me an idea, and it may be hard to do, but an idea of what an air duct cleaning would cost, like a range?
Yeah, so we, generally speaking, I think, the 500 to 1,000 range is going to be pretty safe. Probably other companies have their own pricing structure, but essentially kind of how we do it is by the number of HVAC units that you have. So, and that's not an exact number, but just it gives us an idea of how long it'll take, how many times we have to hook up to the system. So, I mean, the more units you have, the more expensive it's going to be.
Okay, makes sense. Kind of along that route, it's not something you're going to get done on a yearly basis.
Right.
I mean, so let's say you've lived in the house a while, you've had some work done, and you're like maybe worried about air quality. Yep. Can you come out and do you have a way of telling, or is it something you just either do it or you don't? Do you have a way of telling if it needs it, or?
So we do have borescopes that we can run a camera down in there and a ways. It gets, the more you fish it down in there, the harder it is to kind of see. You get turned around, and it becomes a little bit difficult the farther you get in the ductwork. But industry standards say every 3 to 5 years is recommended. Most people don't do it every 3 years. I'll just tell you that, and that's I think that's fine. It depends on the habits of the folks as well. Like, do you change your filters often? What kind of filters do you use? The ones that you can totally see through, and you don't change. Even if you do change those often, a lot is still getting through those filters. On the other hand, you don't. The filters that are super high MERV rating, which is just a high quality of filter. If you don't change those often, you're hurting the system by those get clogged up, and so then the system starves for air. So that's a little bit side topic of what you asked, but that's also an issue when we do that. But so I think personally every 5 years or so is you're doing well. 3 years you'd be ahead of the game, and aside from that, just anytime there's an event, we recommend it. Like, again, moving into a new house or a remodel, maybe redoing the floors, sanding the floors, and refinishing. Things like that is regardless of if it's even been 3 to 5 years.
Does cleaning your air ducts, does it help with cigarette smoke smell?
Not really. You have to remove the source, and the normal duct cleaning process isn't going to do that.
Gotcha.
Now there are some things that can be done, but that's a difficult one. Even cigarette smoke in a home just exposed, not necessarily even the ductwork, but when we're talking about walls and things, is just hard because it gets in all the different places, and you're not going to have success with odor removal unless you really remove all of the source. So it's difficult with ductwork for sure.
All right, so dryer vents.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's something that we've talked about in the past, and just break down why would I even consider getting my dryer vent clean? I mean, it's just a hose hooked up to my dryer, hot air goes out of it. What's the big deal?
Number one, it's a huge fire hazard. There's lint is. I think somebody told me once that Boy Scouts, and I was never a Boy Scout, but they will take dryer vent lint with them when they're going on a camping trip as a fire starter. It's the most flammable thing that there is. It's the easiest thing to get going. So you're obviously dealing with a ton of lint. The dryer gets extremely hot. So if you have any kind of clogs or anything like that, and you get a backup of heat, it could easily be a fire. I think there's something like 13,000 or 14,000 on average dryer vent fires every year in the United States.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. That a friend of mine here in Knoxville actually had that happen. Didn't burn the house down or anything, but it did happen while they were sleeping, and they actually lost a pet because of the actual smoke.
Oh, no.
So that was terrible. So that's obviously number one, safety. Number two is just efficiency of the dryer. I mean, if it gets clogged and air isn't flowing, it's going to take you 2 or 3 times to dry a load of clothes.
I feel like what most people, they get to this point, they're like, my dryer's not working properly. Mm-hmm. So then they just assume the dryer is broke. And then they go through the hassle and the expense of potentially buying a whole new unit or whatever, when come to find out it was the hose, the vent was clogged. Yep. So are newer homes versus older homes, like where do clogs normally happen? Is it just something that just happens, or what's the deal with that?
It's all about the design of the ductwork. So depending on where in the house it's located, how long the ductwork is to exit the building. So if it's in the middle of the house and it's maybe on the second floor and it goes down, so the ductwork's essentially running in between a floor and a ceiling, and it's in the middle of the house, so it's got to go 20 feet to get to the outside, and maybe has to make a couple turns. That's when it becomes a problem. When the more turns, the more 90-degree, 45-degree angles you have in the ductwork, the farther it has to go, the more opportunity for problem. On the other hand, if it's sitting on an exterior wall and it goes out almost directly out the wall, or it's just a couple feet, then it's good to check it, but a lot of times those don't ever become an issue. Gotcha. It's just when it's very long, the dryer is only so powerful anyway, and then every time you it turns. It takes a 90 degrees. It loses.
Gives it more chance for that to stall somewhere and sit.
Right. It's just not powerful enough to make all those turns, and then you get it. The wet lint builds up in those elbows, and then just
And that's why, correct me if I'm wrong, but like when we go through a home inspection on a house, the home inspector will call out if, especially like in maybe in older homes, where they taken the soft tube. And they use it to run a stretch. So it's basically like, let's just say it's hanging in the crawl space, or it's you'll see it a lot in like a split foyer where it's maybe coming, like across the garage or something.
Yeah.
So that would be exactly why they call that out, because not only is that hose not smooth, but now you've also put these like saggy bends in it.
Right.
So like if you have that, you definitely need to A, get it cleaned, and B, probably need to upgrade to the metal tube.
If you can do a metal tube, that's obviously ideal. And there are times when, the reason they don't do it is that they've got to wind it through the trusses and things and get it to the hole that they cut on the outside of the house. So they're kind of trying to connect dots, so it becomes difficult. But if you can have the metal tube, that is really what should be used.
Now you don't do that part though, do you?
Not really. We do some repairs if it's fairly simple, but if it involves removing drywall and things like that, it gets a little bit out of because we don't hang drywall and things like that. So if it gets into that too much, we do refer it out. But if it's fairly simple, if it's in a crawl space and it's kind of a straight shot, we can do that.
So those two things are kind of like service type, preventative maybe, type things. But a big part of your business is going to be more like emergency type stuff, right? Or water damage. So what does that look like? What do you do in these circumstances? When does somebody call you? Like, just break that down for me a little bit.
Yeah, so we don't get a lot of calls from people that are just sitting around Saturday morning having a coffee, kicking around ways to improve the house. What's our projects for the year? We're not like contractors that are getting calls about remodels and adding a deck or anything. It's usually when people are needing something.
They have a problem.
They got a problem, panicking, maybe read a little bit too much on the internet, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's usually water's kind of an emergency. Mold can be an emergency as well. However, mold's a little bit more, okay, we've got some mold. Let's do a little research. Let's get some estimates, and it's a little bit of a slower process usually.
Okay. So you mentioned the mold word, which is the scariest 4-letter word in the real estate industry. Nobody obviously wants a house with mold. But again, so having worked with you for so long, and learning more and more about this, for the most part, it's not as scary as people make it out to be.
Right.
That's like a lack of understanding. I mean,
Yep.
There's a reason why people are afraid, because there has been stuff mainly in other areas. Was it like Chinese drywall? There was a thing for a period of time with black mold in houses like out west and stuff. But there was all these news reports. Here, we live in the South. It's humid. Mold is naturally occurring. It's not the best thing, but so like you see a lot of stuff. What would you say is the most common thing, and what do you? I mean, I don't know. Break down a scenario where maybe you're like, wow, yeah, that's a problem.
Probably the most common thing we see is mold in crawl spaces, because mold needs two things, just like we do. It needs food and water. The food source is everywhere, as you talked about. Mold's everywhere, naturally occurring, but it's also the food source is everywhere as well, because wood is a food source. Paper is a food source. There's paper on the backside of drywall. So, and not only that, wood has mold in it inherently. When you go to the lumberyard, you are buying wood with mold on it or in it, essentially. But it doesn't do much. If it's a clean board, just for instance, it won't do much unless there's a water source. So crawl spaces are the most common thing we see because most crawl spaces are not conditioned, so they're open to the outside air, and humidity can be the water source. Just the vapor in the air is the water source. So it gets to a tipping point of above a certain number, which is 60%, and once that happens, if there's a food source, you're going to have likely mold growing.
So, okay, so like on a home inspection, and we see this predominantly in crawl spaces. And there are a lot of crawl space homes here in East Tennessee. I mean, there's a lot, mainly because of the topography. Mm-hmm. It's a good way to build a house based on the way the land is done. So, but they won't necessarily call it mold.
Right.
They call it fungal growth or microbial growth or something to that. But again, still what the consumer, the buyer sees as mold.
Yeah.
In like a normal scenario, if somebody's got, whether it's mold or microbial growth or whatever you want to call it, when somebody's got that, what do you see? Number one is normally one of the more common problems, and what also is one of the more common fixes.
Humidity is the most common problem. Again, that it needs the water source, so it's you're not going to have a problem if you don't have a water source, basically. And it could be from a water leak on the inside of a house. That's the most common, reason for mold in the inside of a house. But in a crawl space, it's just the humidity. So the most common fix is to remove the mold through a process that we do which is just labor intensive, but then correcting the moisture issue. So in a crawl space, that's going to be taking a look at and giving recommendations for drainage around the house for gutters and downspouts, but also very likely probably some dehumidification. A good vapor barrier to keep the ground, the earth from releasing moisture into the air in the crawl space, but above that, usually it takes a dehumidifier.
So one thing so like over the years, hundreds and hundreds of home inspections, I mean, a lot of time is saying, hey, Zach, I need you to go look at this house. Mm-hmm. Tell me what's going on. What's this going to look like to fix? I feel like the one thing, in honestly, probably one of the more simple systems of a house that gets neglected, that ends up causing thousands of dollars of damage over time, are gutters. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it whether the gutter's full of leaves and therefore it's not working properly, and water's, cause foundation issues and whatnot. But a lot of times it's just a gutter downspout. Yeah. And you've recommended that on a lot of them. It's like, hey, like one of the first things we need to try is like get this water off the corner of the house. Let's get this going off to the side of the yard. Every home inspection is going to say that the water should be at least 6 foot away from the foundation. And that's why you see like the black corrugated pipes in yards and stuff like that. Yep. But people don't get in their crawl space on a regular basis. Like when we go to list a house, we typically will tell her like, hey, before we get going on this, do you regularly maintain your crawl space? Are you in there often? Because for a lot of people, it's just a dark hole under the house. It's got a little door, but probably hasn't been opened in 4 years. We get a lot of rain in the like January, February time frame. In some years, in the last like 5 years, we've had years where we got a ton of rain, way more than normal, which caused a lot of issues for people that normally didn't have issues. But I say all that just to, when you're getting ready to sell your house, or even just if you're living in a house with a crawl space, you need to have somebody go look at it. Yeah. Because mold doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
It's not a one time. It's not like, oh, we got water this once and now we have mold. Mm-hmm. Because if you remove the water source, it doesn't grow, right?
Correct.
So those are the big things. And one thing I really like about working with you is I feel like you come at everything with a very common sense approach. Okay? And we've talked about this, and you're not in there, like, obviously your job is to sell a service, but ultimately I feel like you always go at it like I'm going to take care of this client, and you get referral business and repeat business out of it.
Yeah.
Which is how we like to work. So what I have seen, I've seen two extremes in the industry when it comes to crawl spaces and mold.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen the kind of chuck in a truck. We've got this. I know how to get rid of that. They show up with a bleach bottle and a scrub brush, and they essentially wipe the mold down. And obviously for a homeowner, they feel like that's the cheap way of handling it. Like no mold, no problem. Which you and I both know, all you've done is wiped it off. You didn't get rid of the problem.
If they did that, even a lot of times they just spray it.
They just spray it.
Yeah.
Okay. So at the end of the day, like that mold came from somewhere. Mm-hmm. It came because there was a humidity issue. And if you don't take care of that humidity issue, it's just going to come back. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, what a lot of that stuff can do over time is it starts to eat the wood.
Right.
Right. And that's where we've seen bad examples of that is like, it may be at like the front door where under the threshold mm-hmm. it's gotten through and like it'll eat almost all the wood underneath the door. And that's stuff that needs to be addressed. That's why it's important to get in there. Mm-hmm. The flip side is, and there are companies out there, I'm not going to name any name. You and I know who they are. And whenever I see them enter into the deal, like, hey, we're going to bring this company back out to, give us a price on some things. It's almost as if like someone just like threw a coffin on the deal. They're like this. I'm going to, essentially to me, the other agent's saying, I don't know anybody else. This company markets to me a lot. I'm calling them. But every time they enter into the deal, they are selling the Cadillac package. You need a sump pump, a dehumidifier, you need encapsulation, and it is a $10,000 to $15,000 quote every time. And what I like again about your approach, number one, we've worked together long enough. I can gauge when you say something. Like if you say, "Oh, it's not that bad," then I know it's not that bad. If you say, "Yeah, it definitely needs this," then I know. But if you say, "No, Eric, it's pretty bad," mm-hmm. then I'm like, "Oh wow."
Yeah.
Like because you're in crawl spaces all the time.
Right.
So you know what a bad one looks like. But the fact is, you come at it with an approach like, hey, like, look, it doesn't have this. Number one, let's get the downspout off of the corner. Mm-hmm. There's no vapor barrier, which a lot of that humidity comes from the ground.
Could be just that, right?
Right. So like it's this tiered approach. Mm-hmm. We can do these three things. Ultimately, like let's just say we do these items, and I come back in 6 months, and we still have a humidity issue. Then we can do this, this, and this.
Right. And
for a buyer or a seller, man, that's a much better approach. Like no one wants to get hit with. This is why it scares buyers a lot of time. They get that quote, and number one, they're like, the seller's got to fix this.
Right. Like
if the seller's not willing to spend $15,000, I'm not buying the house. Mm-hmm. From the seller's approach, they were never looking to spend $15,000. So they're looking then for a better option, right? And so for our standpoint, when it comes to negotiation, it's normally kind of hard to correct that path once it's already gone down that way. So like we like to call you, especially if we're on the buy side, because you can also then take the time to explain to the buyer mm-hmm. what this is like, and what care for a house, what a crawl space is, right?
Yep.
So I just think it's very important to say that there are people in this industry that even though they may do a great job, you spend $15,000 on a crawl space, you may never have a problem again.
Yep.
Right? But did you need to spend $15,000?
Right. Yeah, there's just a lot of, as you said, both sides of the spectrum. There's a lot of guys out there that mean well, but kind of are a jack of all trades and are not afraid to do anything for somebody, and if they have a relationship like, oh, you got something going on in the crawl space, we'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. That's where the spray comes in, or, and not actually really doing anything about both the mold, because that's not really doing anything for the mold anyway, or correcting any moisture issues. And then on the flip side, as you mentioned, there's, I think 10 to 15,000 is being kind of nice. I think it's a lot of times 15, 20, 30 here lately.
Yeah, I haven't, knock on wood, I haven't had
Yeah.
one lately.
And there are some that need it, but a lot of those are what we've seen from dealing with our customers and potential customers, is just they're getting a one-size-fits-all approach being pitched to them without really understanding maybe all of the aspects of what's going on. And yeah, I am personally a very let's take it one step at a time kind of guy, step-by-step approach. And I always tell my guys that, in our company that, try to put yourself in their buyer or seller shoes, or just homeowner in general shoes, or, pretend like it's your house.
Right.
Do you want to write that check? You want to fix it, obviously. So let's do what needs to be done. Let's do it right. But, do you want to actually have to pay that bill, and if you think that it needs it and you're willing to pay it, then great, let's do it. That's what we need to do. But we don't need to be putting out these extras in there that probably, doesn't need to happen. So
yeah, and that is, I think, I think that's a big differentiator between you and your company and a lot of other ones. And again, it's a reason why you're one of our preferred vendors. Like, that's the kind of relationship we want our clients to have with their people, especially from the educational standpoint. We want people to say, hey, like, if something's scary, say it's scary, right? Like, hey, like, it may be better to burn this house down than it is to try to fix it. Like, be honest. But what I think happens again in this industry is a lot of people, make something sound scary. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and let's be honest, crawl spaces aren't pretty for the most part. No. So especially when you see one that's been, I'm gonna call it neglected. A crawl space has been neglected for a while. It's had some humidity. It's an older house. It's got insulation, and normally, like, that's when it starts to look scary. Like, the insulation starts to sag, mm-hmm. and it there's spider webs and like.
I always say that looks like a haunted house. I mean, that's essentially what you're going into.
Which is why people don't hang out in their crawl space, Right. But I have seen your before and after work. Mm-hmm. Typically you like to remove the insulation. Mm-hmm. So cool side story. I just recently sold a new construction house. Actually, it was Teresa's client. I went to their final walkthrough, and we were in their crawl space. Number one, it didn't have any insulation, and they had a big crawl space, big enough to like walk in and some more room. And then, but they had done the foam on the walls. Yeah. Which I remember you saying, like, when we first started kind of doing this, it's like, okay, look, this insulation, we can replace it, but it's going to be expensive. And it's also just going to probably do this again over time. Like, and it doesn't benefit as much as people think it does. Insulating the wall is where you get a better, like, R value, right? So, like, actually seeing this in a new construction house, I was like, that's awesome. Like, somebody's actually doing what makes sense versus just what the standard has always been.
Yeah, it's a great way to go. I mean, we don't love fiberglass subfloor insulation for sure. It's a sponge. It holds moisture. But yeah, putting spray foam on the walls gives you the insulating factor that you need, and what is code and all of those things. And it's not a sponge, So it's a great product. Yeah.
So if I am a homeowner, my house is sitting on a crawl space. Like, number one, why? I'm just gonna say it. One thing you've mentioned before is the amount of air that you breathe comes from the crawl space.
Yep.
And I don't remember what that number is, but there's on average a certain
Yeah, it's up to 50%. I've heard people say 60, but I think it's up to 50%.
So if you're living on a crawl space, about 50% of the air you're breathing is coming from that air. Like that in itself, I mean, you mentioned at the beginning of this that air quality is
Yeah.
your main focus. So like, with that being the case, it would make sense to regularly check that.
Yeah.
Do you offer a service or do that for people?
We offer a service, and we could do a semi-annual or annual. I mean, we could even do quarterly if you wanted to, but generally speaking, most people do semi-annual or annual. We recommend it. That's a service we provide, but even if they don't use us, we still recommend it. And a lot of people think that they're maybe getting that because they've got pest control or something like that, and they've got somebody crawling up under the house to look at that. And some of those guys are good about pointing out things under the house, but not all. So I mean, it is just important to monitor it.
Well, yeah. To that point, when you get a termite letter, fungus is considered a wood destroying organism. Not a whole lot different than a termite. So they will, like, if they see it, they will point it out on a letter.
Yeah.
They'll also sometimes try to send a quote, and I don't know if termite guys are the best people to
Right.
be getting rid of your mold. But between a home inspector and a termite inspection, you should have a pretty good idea if you have an existing problem. But still,
Well, and to circle back to what you were saying before about the asking your when you're going to list a house, you're asking them if you know what the history, or if they know anything about the crawl space, to have someone looking at it before, either on a regular basis or even just before it gets listed, to kind of give you a heads up to prevent that $15,000 to $20,000 quote that you said, that coffin being dropped on the deal.
and that's why we have that conversation. Like our goal is to preempt. Like if some homeowners are very particular, and you look at, they're like, oh yeah, the crawl space has got this and this, and I've done all, like, there are those people, and then again there's the rest of us who, again, we'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a crawl space. It's funny when you see like husband and wife look at each other and they're like, do we have a crawl space?
Yeah.
Like they're not even sure. So we highly recommend having that happen before we put a home on the market. From that standpoint of trying to prevent an issue when under contract, because there's nothing like, a buyer falls in love with a house. We get everything negotiated. They do their home inspection, and now they're scared, and you don't want them scared. We can normally negotiate through that, but you're dealing with, you're actually kind of dealing with fear on both sides. Like one person doesn't want to lose a deal, the other person maybe doesn't want to, spend hundreds of $1,000s at the house of something that in their mind they feel like might kill them.
Yeah.
Or cause horrible lung issues and breathing, like, and a lot of that stuff, like I said, is overblown to a certain extent, because all of that's fixable. I mean, pretty much everything in a house is fixable.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of if it's worth it or not.
That's right. Yep.
So I think we kind of talked about a lot of the main services, but the one I don't think we really hit on is really kind of your like emergency service. You guys do. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but let's just say, tree fell, poked a hole during a rainstorm, and I got all this water damage. I mean, I can't just let it sit and like carpet soaked. What do I do?
Yep.
They should call you, right?
Yeah. Water damage is our main emergency service, and that is something that you don't. We'll get 5 estimates, and it's going to take a week worth of estimates, and we'll figure out who's the right fit. It's something that needs to happen quickly. Some of the worst looking houses on the inside or properties just in general are places that had water damage of some sort that sat undealt with, basically. So it is important to get to that stuff very quickly. So getting the water removed and starting the drying process as soon as possible is huge in that.
So I know this was an emergency service call, but you and I we did a deal a while back where we listed a fellow's house. We actually had the buyers for that house, and his was a very he hadn't actually been living in the house for some time. And it was a basement home, because other than crawl spaces, basements are the other one that get a lot of issues.
Yep.
So obviously basements can be high humidity. In this one, when you open up the door and walk down the stairs, you could start to see it on the walls.
Right.
That one, you guys, I mean, if I remember correctly, it took a few days of just, you used some sort of scrubbing deal and whatever, like.
That was if I'm remembering the same one, that was just that did take several days, and it was just because everything needed to be cleaned. We remove mold, which is different than just spraying something. So it's touching all the surfaces. It's removing, that was all surface mold, mostly surface mold, if I remember correctly, from humidity. So it wasn't necessarily because of water damage, which that's another, the way of going about that would be different. It'd probably be tearing out a lot of drywall if that was the case. But in this case, it was more humidity and surface mold. So it was time consuming, because we had to HEPA vacuum all the floors, ceilings, walls, doors, everything. And we had air scrubbers running and all kinds of different, it took a while. It was a pretty big house too.
It was. And honestly, and then if I'm not mistaken, I think you maybe helped them out with dehumidifiers and whatnot to make sure that problem didn't come back. Because again, if you remove the food source, or the water,
right,
if you remove the humidity, mold won't grow.
Yeah, that's right. It won't grow. And we did put a dehumidifier in that basement. I don't remember the exact setup of the HVAC units in that house, but as you mentioned, basements are another big, damp space in a house. And one of the biggest things that happens around here with basements, and the reason why, is they might have just one HVAC unit. They have a basement, they've got a main floor. Well, the thermostat's on the main floor, and so people keep it at a comfortable temperature for them on the main floor. That's the main living area. That's where the living room is, kitchen, all the things. And so especially in the summer, when they're calling for air conditioning on the main floor, the basement doesn't need it. It's underground. It's insulated. It's cool down there already. Yeah. So then it kicks on, and you're pumping cold air into the basement. It changes the dew point of the basement, so you get condensation. You get, it's a totally different environment. I don't know if that was the case in this house, but we did put a dehumidifier in the basement. But
if I remember correctly, that one had two units. But I have seen exactly what you're talking about. Same thing with bathrooms in basements that don't have proper venting.
Right.
You start to see crazy stuff on the walls and stuff. Again, the bottom line is we've seen some crazy stuff.
Yep.
All of it's fixable.
Right.
Does it take money? Sure. Mm-hmm. I would say one of my big points is make sure you call the right person.
Yeah.
And it won't, you won't be basically being taken. Because let's be honest, you don't want to buy something because it's cheap only to have to redo it again.
Right.
And you also don't want, nobody wants to overpay. Nobody wants to overpay. Nobody wants to buy too much of a service more than they need, kind of deal.
Yeah.
So I have on here what separates you from other companies, and I think we've pretty much covered that. We've talked about some of the benefits of calling you to come out and check the crawl space, check the basement to service. You have to service a dehumidifier, correct?
You do. You should change or clean the filter, depending on what kind of dehumidifier you have. Change or clean the filter every 6 to 12 months. So that should be done. Yep.
So what is do you have maybe one of the worst things have you walked into a place and been like, oh wow, this
oh yeah, for sure. We've had several of those. We've had houses where they probably weren't the most high dollar home to begin with, and where we've said, oh, you might be better off starting over. I mean, kind of not really saying that to someone, but kind of yeah, you're probably going to spend more in remediation than you would if you just kind of started from the ground up, type of thing. So that you get those we used to get those every once in a while, not anymore, but probably, I remember we've seen so many of them that it takes a lot now to really be like, wow. From a crawl space standpoint, it's not so much the scariness of the crawl space. It's more about, ooh, look at that opening. It's only this big. Like those are the things. Or look, we got to get under this plumbing, and it's only, it's more about the clearance and if it's gravel versus dirt under there, because gravel gets kind of hard on you.
Well, and I'm sure it's just you under there, right? There's not like creepy crawlies.
Well, we've seen our fair share of snakes the last few years.
Which is probably another reason why people don't go in their crawl space.
That's a reason for sure. I think the worst. I'm not too spiders and things don't bother me too much, but this doesn't happen too often. But when you crawl into the crawl space and you see a pair of eyes looking back at you, that's usually when that's the time when I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah.
We'll wait. We'll wait. I'll come back. Leave the door open for a little while.
Oh man, yeah. So I'll just be honest. I'm not a fan, personally. I will get into crawl spaces, especially if from a real estate standpoint, when we're looking at a house and it's on a crawl space, especially if Teri, Joe, and I are both showing, I will typically step out and open up the door and get an idea, right? Mm-hmm. Because again, I've seen so many home inspections at this point. I feel like I have an idea what I'm looking for a bit. Like I can help point something out ahead of time.
Yeah.
Knowing that the home inspector is probably going to call it. And there are some where I've opened the door, there's no light, there's the plastic, is not maybe there. It's, it's really bad when you can tell that first step is muddy. Mm-hmm. Like you're like, oh, that's probably a problem. The spider webs, just all that stuff, and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna look around a little bit. It was big enough to maybe like get in, kind of hunched over. Mm-hmm. I will just stick my head in if it's one of those. If it's a true crawl, like that's. Yeah. But I'm like, I've got Zach to go through this.
That's
one.
right.
Like I'm not necessarily gonna do that.
No.
But the thing is, like, the thing that gets me a lot of times though is like the amount of junk. Mm-hmm. That ends up in a crawl space sometimes. You can tell someone's lived in there for 15, 20 years. Yep. Their kids grew up there. Like, there's an old bicycle. Like, there's just old stuff. Yeah. And that's not good either. Like,
no, but that brings up a point. That's one of the reasons to maintain your crawl space to begin with and have it clean and dry, because certain crawl spaces are great for storage if the moisture is under control.
Well, I've seen some awesome ones. Yeah, people put in shelving and all sorts of stuff, yep. and maybe a little flooring or whatever. Yep. Yeah.
We still recommend putting stuff in containers with lids and stuff, but it's a great place to put Christmas decorations and things that's not taking up space in the rest of the house if it's good. But you're right, there's way too often it's just throwing all the extra shingles under there and the wheelbarrow and things like that.
It's like, again, sometimes it's like the black hole of the house.
Yeah. For sure.
All right, so awesome. So we're gonna kind of maybe now that we've talked about a lot of the business stuff. So how long have you been here? Where'd you come here from? I know you're not a native.
I'm not a native. No, I'm not. That's right. I came here in 2011. I came here at the same time I started the business. I'm originally from Minnesota.
Okay.
I lived in a couple other places after college and did a couple other jobs, kind of experienced the corporate world a little bit, but came here in 2011, so I've been here getting close to 13 years.
It goes by quick, doesn't it?
It does.
What is having lived in Minnesota and then like you said some various stuff, but what are some of the things? What drew you to Knoxville in the first place?
Well, there's a lot of similarities in the Knoxville, East Tennessee area to Minnesota, in my opinion. A lot of nature, a lot of outdoors type things. I grew up in the country. I grew up on a farm, so one thing I like about Knoxville is it doesn't take too long and you can be in the country.
Yeah.
And there's 4 seasons, so there's a lot of similar things. With that being said, growing up in Minnesota, I experienced a lot of winters, and I definitely like the Knoxville winters better. The summers get kind of long a little bit, but at the same time, I'd rather have a long, hot summer than a long, cold winter.
Yeah,
So,
I would agree. So like we had a cold snap this year. We had a good snow that lasted longer than norm, and then the whole time I'm like, how do the people up north deal with this for months? Like I think everybody here was like ready to pull their hair out within like 3 days.
yep.
And snow was on the ground. We were literally went to a Vols basketball game the other day, and there was still a pile of snow in like the basement of the garage. Right, like
Yeah.
I was like, this thing is hanging around for like as long as it possibly can. But yeah, so the weather, the Four Seasons, awesome. I mean, I'm from the opposite end. I'm from Florida. Been here since 2007, and the Four Seasons are definitely a big draw. Does it get hot here? Yeah. Is it hot forever? No. Is it get cold here? Yeah. Is it cold forever? No.
Yep.
And so like that gives you something always to kind of look forward to. Because I'll be honest with you, in the wintertime, what do we all complain about? How cold it is. In the summertime, what do we complain about? How hot it is. So we're always looking forward to that next season.
Yep.
All right. So do you have a favorite restaurant?
Ooh. So I've got a favorite lunch restaurant and a favorite dinner place. So
Hit me with it.
yeah, lunch. I love Aladdin's Cafe. It's awesome.
Okay.
Close by where I'm at all the time. And dinner place. That's a tough one. There's all kinds of great places. It kind of came down to Chesapeake's and Lakeside Tavern, but I'm kind of a Lakeside man.
I like all three of those places. First of all, what do you get at Aladdin's? What's your thing?
Seems strange, but I get their burger. The burger is awesome.
Okay. Is it a like a Euro burger or just a burger?
Just a burger.
Just a burger. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna have to try
Their
that.
fries are fantastic as well. So.
Okay. So Aladdin's Cafe, and that's over on Kingston Pike.
Kingston Pike,
Is that near Staples?
near Staples. Yep, it's
Yep.
close to the mall.
Close to the mall.
Yep.
All right. And then Chesapeake's is a great seafood restaurant. We got two locations. Got the original one downtown, but I'm assuming you probably go to the one we go to the most, which is out in West Knoxville.
I actually I like going to the downtown one. I like the
Okay.
old sort of ambiance, the darkness and just the old school vibe.
It definitely has that with the fish tanks and all that stuff, which the one out west does too. But it's definitely a more modern
Absolutely.
look. But the food's good. If you're into adult beverages, they make good drinks there.
Yep.
So yeah, and then Lakeside's cool because it's legitimately on the water.
Yep.
Like you're overlooking the water, which we only have a handful. One of the things I feel like Knoxville needs to improve upon is we only have a handful of restaurants on the water.
Yeah.
And the view of the water is so nice. Like we could definitely have more, but Lakeside has a great place over there. Again, good food.
Yep.
When the weather's nice, you can sit out on the patio.
Yeah, they've got a great patio and there's all kinds of parking. I mean, it's easy to get to. It's just there's a lot of nice things about it. The view is nice, like you said. Yeah.
It's a cool spot. Awesome. Okay, so is there does Zach have like a favorite thing that he likes to do that you could probably maybe only do around here in Knoxville, or it's one of the things that Knoxville provides that you're like, this is awesome?
I think the thing about Knoxville for me is there's two different things. It's you can be back to the nature thing. I mean, you can be to the mountains in 45 minutes, which is it's not just the mountains. There's a national park.
Yeah.
You can be out in the country in 30 minutes, something like that. There's water everywhere. Tennessee River coming through here, and so there's lakes and a lot of other rivers besides that. So the water, the nature thing is really cool. It's just a beautiful place as far as all that goes. And then the other thing that I think Knoxville is awesome, if you want something maybe that a bigger city is going to provide, you've got within a short half-day drive, you got Nashville 3 hours or so roughly, Cincinnati, Atlanta, Charlotte are all about 4 hours away. Lexington and Louisville are not that far away. You got the Bourbon Trail, you got horse racing. I mean, there's all kinds of things that are just like weekend trips are
like this
really
cool
easy.
Central location to all this stuff.
Just an easy weekend trip, all kinds of different options. So that's pretty cool.
To be able to take advantage of big city life like Nashville and Atlanta, and yet be able to live in Knoxville is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I just scheduled a lot of like continuing education type stuff that we do. A lot of it's held in Nashville, so like, well, I won't even stay the night. Like it's a long day.
Yep.
But if it's a day class, we just go in the morning and come back that night. And but yeah, I agree. I like all of those things as well. All right, so I think we covered. Is there anything we haven't covered that you would like to cover before we wrap this up?
No, I think we've covered everything. I mean, we'll. I think we're good.
Okay, so first of all, before we wrap this up, I want you to say your tagline, okay, and then let everybody know like the best way for them to get a hold of you.
Yeah. Best way to get a hold of us is just through the website or just call in the office. I mean, we've got we are a franchise, so we do have someone monitoring a chat and monitoring the phones basically 24/7. So that's really the easiest way to get a hold of us.
What's the website?
AdvantaClean.com.
Okay.
And so that's really the easiest way to get a hold of us, and they pass messages to us. So they'll email us or call us, and we'll get back to you and everything. So, and call AdvantaClean. We clean and dry before we say goodbye.
Awesome. And on that note, guys, I appreciate you listening to another episode of The Den. Again, I'm Eric Whitener with the Knox Real Estate Group, and look forward to catching you on the next one.